So we're heading to football now on the SportsMax zone. It's been a jam-packed week in the Red Nephew Jamaica Premier League with matchweek 19 presenting the first full slate of midweek fixtures of the season. Let's have a look at the results now and how those results affected the table. Chapelton Maroons beaten 3-0 by Portmore United. Vere 1-1 with Dunbeholden. Harbourview continuing to struggle, bottom of the table, losing to Waterhouse 1-0. Mount Pleasant 3-0 over Cavalier in a battle of top teams. Racing United upset Tivoli Gardens by 2-0. No goals between Malines and Arnett Gardens. Arnett Gardens losing pace as they chase the lead. And Montego Bay United now with a 3-1 victory over Humberland. And that Montego Bay United victory propelling them to the number 2 spot in the table. But they're all of 6 points behind the high-riding leader is Mount Pleasant. But they are, in fact, 2 points now ahead of Arnett Gardens, who dropped those points in their game on Thursday. Portmore United are 4th on 33 points, the same as Waterhouse, and Cavalier just 1 point behind in 6th on 32. Those are the top 6 teams at the moment occupying the qualifying spots. Tivoli Gardens and Racing United are closest to the playoff spots, although Tivoli have a 7-point gap on Racing United. Malines on 18, and Humberland and Harbourview in relegation positions at the moment. And here are the fixtures awaiting us for the coming weekend. Harbourview against Dunbeholden, Montego Bay United against Portmore, a battle of ex-champions there. Cavalier against Arnett Gardens, that's another huge fixture. Vere United tackling Racing United. Chapelton facing Waterhouse. Humberland against Malines. And Tivoli Gardens will be trying to rebound from their upset loss to Racing United. And they have a mountain to climb because it's Mount Pleasant that they will face. Now, as you can see, there is so much to go through. So we have doubled up on our analysts to get through it. Leger Williams and Dwight Jeremiah. Gentlemen, welcome to the SportsMax zone. I don't think we've ever had you two on in the same time on a Zoom contact, have we?
No, I'm not thinking so. So you continue to make history.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me start with you, Dwight. You're on the phone line, in fact. Mount Pleasant making the news here constantly, and they are now a record equaling 10 wins in a row. The last time we saw this was back in 2015 when Arnett Gardens went 10 matches in a row. How impressed are you with the Mount Pleasant form at the moment and how their season has gone?
Well, you know what? Didn't start it well this season for them because, you know, coaching change, and then they were making the news for the wrong reasons in terms of having to try and bring back their chosen two and having to stash the cash to do so. But I guess based on the run of results, they have been proven right to have gone that route because even more so at home, I mean, they are they're showing almost unbeaten signs at home, as if it's gonna, when you go there, it's almost you know you're going to go away with nothing. And that's how good they have been and supported by the crowd there. But they're not really dominating games from start to finish. And even when I spoke to the owner this week, he's of that view too, that they're not really at their best yet, but they're managing to win games. And, you know, the old cliche, that's what championship teams are made of. But the firepower up front, I mean, and it is shown by the gap in the amount of goal they've scored compared to the next team close to them. I think Montego Bay is on 33 and they're on 48. So I think even up front only, you can say they're really, really impressive.
Yeah, and Liz, let's get a comment from you here because I was tempted to go back to the Arnett Gardens 10-match winning streak back in 2015, and I saw where during their 10-match winning streak they had 22 goals. In Mount Pleasant's current 10-match winning streak, they have 33 goals, and they've got goals coming from all over the place. I see Celestine scoring back-to-back matches, coming off the bench. They appear to be spoiled for riches, this Mount Pleasant team, Liz.
Yeah, they most definitely are. This Mount Pleasant team, as Dwight would have said, they're basically a juggernaut. Especially when it comes down to the attack, they have an embarrassment of riches with more to come. Them signing Siobhan Walsh, who we spoke on the last show about how devastating of a striker he is and how he's one of the best strikers in the league. So that's another attacking player to come in. But when you speak about the attacking players that they do have, they're all so talented. You mentioned Celestine, the young Haitian, only 16, 17 years of age. They have Nolan coming through as well, who's only 15 years old. So they have all of this attacking talent that they're mixing experience with youth, and they're all playing at a very, 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 I cannot say this enough, very, very, very high level. And when it comes down to their attack, I think Dwight was saying that they don't dominate games as well as they can, as well as we know that they can. But when it comes down to their player quality, it really doesn't lie. And at the end of the day, yes, I love tactics. Yes, I love numbers. But when you have that level of talent in your attack, and you have that level of talent, especially in your midfield, it's always going to be extremely difficult for any team to get the better of them. And they've been proving that week on week. They've been improving week on week, I think, in terms of their structure and what they want to do in attack. And as you said, they're getting goals all over the place, and I don't see it stopping anytime soon.
Yeah, Dwight, the 3-0 victory they had over Cavalier this week, how surprising was that? Because Cavalier is one of the best teams in the league. I know on current form, they are not on top of their game. I think they've won just one of their last 5 matches, this Cavalier team. So with that, do you think the 3-0 margin for Mount Pleasant over Cavalier was an unexpected result?
Yes, at least the scoreline. I think at Droxall, I wouldn't be surprised if they won the game, which they did. But the margin of victory, I was a little bit surprised. Yes, when I saw it. And, initially I thought I was going to be there carrying the game, and I was also invited up by Mount Pleasant to come and see, but I couldn't go up there yesterday for it. But I was surprised by the margin. But there's one thing, I think, why they're so good at home to, or even good overall as a team, because they didn't concede again, and that stretches their record at home to, 25-1 in terms of goal scoring conceding. But I just want to touch a bit on that midfield with Jashawn Anglin. He was the man of the match against Arnett Gardens and paired in the middle of the park with Sula McCullough. I think that when you have the attacking power, which they do, it sets the platform for your attacking players to go and just express themselves, knowing that they have that type of players behind them in midfield, that defensive cover behind them so they can go and express themselves. But Anglin, he also scored yesterday. Again, that speaks to what I saw on Sunday against Arnett, which the level of rotation. I mean, Kimoni Bailey was playing at left back, not foreign to him, but I have not been there for a while. But the way they cover for him, even at times, Anglin was at left back when Bailey went up, and then there was McCullough in centre back when Cummins or Dyer seems to go forward. So I guess, when you look at it, we talk so much about the attacking side, but, all around as a team, I mean, it's quality all over.
Yeah, and I guess because of Mount Pleasant's form, it's sort of compelling to talk a lot about them, but there are 13 other teams in the league, so let's try to move on. And let me get Liz here on this, because from the start of the season, I've heard positive comments about Racing United and the fact that there are things about this promoted team that look threatening, but they haven't been able to get the results. They snapped an 8-match winless run with an upset victory over Tivoli Gardens yesterday, Liz. How satisfying would that result be for the coaching staff?
Yeah, I think that would be very satisfying. The reason being, this racing team, they're going through a little bit of a transition. They released, I would say, around 8 players in this January window. They got some reinforcements, some schoolboys coming into the team. Anthony Patrick, who is also the coach of St. Catherine High, a team that went to the final of the urban area schoolboy football competition, the Manning Cup, and he's brought in some more of his players. And I think that will help them going forward. But they do have a lot of attacking talent. When you speak about Ronaldo Biggs, who has been, without getting all of the goals or all of the assists, he's been one of the most threatening wide men in the Jamaica Premier League this season. And then from match week 1, I remember coming on the show and speaking about Mikael Ellis, who was on the score sheet yesterday against Tivoli. I think he's only 19, 20 years old, but I already think that he's one of the best midfielders in the league. And when you have players like that in your team, you're always liable to compete against the very best teams, and they have competed against the very best teams this season. They've beaten Cavalier once, drawn with them another time. They now have beaten Tivoli right off of the back of that Cavalier draw. So they have a lot of quality in their team, Their goalkeeper is very solid as well, Carlisle Holmes. They have some good defenders. But I think it's just all about them getting the consistency in their play because they have all the quality, I think, to even make a late run at that top six, although it seems quite out of reach for everyone who's not in there right now.
Yeah, of course, they're on 19 points with Cavalier at the moment on 32 points in 6th position. So by my math, they are 13 points adrift of a playoff spot. At this stage of the competition will be a tall ask, but I think for Anthony Patrick and Racing United, just staying in the Jamaica Premier League will be a significant achievement for them this season, and maintaining that top 8 position. Dwight, I do want to talk about Montego Bay United, though, because with the exception of Mount Pleasant, who we've already pointed out have gone 10 wins in a row in the Jamaica Premier League, a lot of the other teams are finding it difficult to string wins together. Even if they are not losing in some cases, it's difficult to string wins together. Not for Montego Bay United, though. They've won 4 of their last 5. They have moved ahead of Arnett Gardens into that 2nd position. How dangerous are they looking from your standpoint?
Well, I tell you what, you touch a good point in that as much as Mount Pleasant is flying, when you look at it, even on the weekend, if Arnett had won, they would have been on level on points with them. So, yes, there are other teams that have really been doing well, and Montego Bay is certainly one of them. And even that blip in the middle the other day with Arnett, but they missed a penalty. I think they're doing well. And we're talking about Brad Brown a lot in terms of what he's doing. But, you know, let's look at Chenil Thomas, who is in there. And a lot of praise it came from Zapata the other day about him. Now, he's already topped his best thing in the Premier League when you look at the goals he has scored. You know, he's at 9 now, and his best was, 4? I mean, I look at them, and he's quite good tactically as a coach, and they'll play about 4 different formations in a game. I mean, he'll just react to what is happening in the game. And so often, I think teams win game based on coaches' in-game changes, and he's quite good at that. I think they have quality in terms of attack, midfield, and defence as well. So I certainly believe, I believe if there's one team that could challenge Mount Pleasant, it is them at the moment, and I'm looking forward to that next encounter between Montego Bay United and Mount Pleasant, because I really think they have good firepower up front in the midfield and solid at the back. And Zapata, like I say, a good tactician as well. I feel Montego Bay United certainly has a good shot at winning the title, because when it comes to the playoff, you know, games will not be played at home, and Mount Pleasant good form at home. Yes, they're good away, but yeah, we know what it is like when you get to that time. So you're flying now, but there's a playoff still to come.
Yeah, it is so different in sport when you're in must-win situations as opposed to when you're good,
Yes.
You know you're good, and you're just having fun and enjoying the stage of the competition that you are at. But Legit, a point that Coach Zapata made earlier this week when he said this guy, Chenil Thomas, should get a look in with the Reggae Boys. Is he saying that because he genuinely believes it, or because he has a young man who is doing well for Montego Bay United, his team, and maybe it is, you know, part of giving him a boost? And from your standpoint, do you think that Chenil has the quality to break into the Reggae Boys setup?
Yeah, I think any coach is going to say positive things about their players, and rightfully so, especially when they're doing so well for them. But in my opinion, I think Chenil Thomas is a very interesting player tactically. So I think he solves and creates a lot of problems for coaches, because he is a player that can easily break a game. And when I say break a game, there's a certain tier of players that they call game breakers. Those are the type of players that creates roles. So if you were to cast your mind back to like Claude Makalele, they call that defensive midfield role the destroyer, the Claude Makalele role. Now, Chenil Thomas reminds me a lot of players who make their living invading space. Now, he's a fantastic player on the ball, a lot of skill, and can score goals. But one thing about Chenil Thomas, he's so intelligent in his movement, and that leads to him always getting in dangerous areas. He's not an out-and-out number 9. He likes to float in behind and drift to the wings. And a German phrase or a German saying for a player like that is a ramdoiter, and a ramdoiter is translated to English as an invader of space. And Chenil Thomas does that excellently. And then when you couple that with his skill on the ball and the fact that he's scoring goals at a high level, I do think that he does deserve a look in the national team, because Jamaica don't have a profile like that. And football is all about profiling. And Jamaica, they have their out-and-out number 9s, of course. They have all of their wingers, but they haven't quite nailed down that attacking midfield spot. And Jamaica isn't necessarily blessed with many natural, creative players. So I think if Jamaica could develop a system where someone like Chenil Thomas could be profiled well and platformed well enough, I think he definitely has the quality to play for the Reggae Boys because of his unique skill set and profile.
Yeah, Dwight Jeremiah, are you agreeing with that assessment from Lejay Williams?
I would for sure. I think he's added work rate to his game this year.
You don't sound too sure, Dwight. You
no,
sound
man,
as if you have a different opinion.
No, I really think he has always felt that he doesn't have to work hard enough, and I'm seeing a lot more work from him. And what Lejay says, I liken it to him. In fact, I call him, sometimes I joke with somebody and say he's like Gandalf. He's a wizard which doesn't arrive too early or too late, but precisely when he wants to. He arrives in time, in those space, and he knows how to get there at the right time and just have that turn of pace as well. And I do agree that he's not a number 9 that's going to be up there and just be your focal point, but he'll drop deep and he'll link play up. So I agree that he should get a look in, at least in this set of games coming up, which they're there now in the squad. And I think it's an interesting thing for these set of local-based players, because a lot of persons have been saying, we should look at more local-based players. I think these two set of games hinges on the thought of having more in there, or the argument of that hinges on these set of players now going forward, because there are a lot of teams doing well. There's a lot of players performing well in the Premier League that we talk about week in, week out. Let's now see them on that international stage. Not the biggest of teams, it's Trinidad and Tobago still, but it's not just the win that we'd be looking for, but how these local-based teams, players perform will also either kill the argument or give some boost to it in terms of the fact that we should look at more. So I think it's very important these two sets again. Yeah,
Dwight, we're almost out of time. In fact, we're out of time, but I have to follow up with this question as you spoke about the friendly matches coming up against Trinidad and Tobago and the local-based players, the Jamaica Premier League players getting the opportunity. But isn't it different when you have a squad of local-based players or Jamaica Premier League players taking on Trinidad and Tobago, as opposed to taking the very best, the ones you genuinely feel are ready, and having them as part of your main setup? Isn't there something very different about those two things?
Well, I would agree to an extent, yes, because, sometimes we say good players like to play with good players, and sometimes when you're playing with really good players, it brings the best out of you. So I really believe that it's a different atmosphere. It does allow you to do things differently, probably express yourself more in your role. You remember me just talking about angling, allowing the attacking players that more pleasant to do well. So you have certain players around you, then you are allowed to afforded to be able to express yourself the way you want to, as opposed to, yes, when you have players around you not of the highest quality as well, it may not be the time. You may have to do more than you are accustomed to doing, or it may not allow you to express as much as you'd want to. So
within your role,
in it. Yeah, but I still believe though that there's a huge opportunity for them to really make a case for local-based players, playing these two sets of games, because again, you have to look, it's Trinidad and Tobago. I'm not no disrespect to Trinidad and Tobago, but maybe that which you just spoke of is somewhat nullified in the effect because of the opponent as well.
All right, Dwight, thanks a lot. We'll leave it there, and we'll talk to you again soon. Liz will stay on the line because we do have some La Liga discussion coming up after the break. So that's our JPL segment for now. We go to break now. We'll be back with more on the SportsMax Zone after this.